So I put together this tiny anti-scroll kit that fits in my pocket. And for 5 days, I tried this little experiment where during my commute, my phone had to stay at the bottom of my bag to make it inaccessible. So basically, whenever I had the urge to scroll, I had to reach for this instead. And I was not perfectly successful at all, but I did learn some interesting things about my own brain, habits, and all of that. In this video, I'm going to show you my anti-scroll everyday carry, my imperfect results, and the 2 key takeaways from this experiment. Let's dive in. So let's talk about my kit. It's a wallet, a notebook, a tiny library, and a small art kit, all in this tiny setup. So let's look at the wallet part first. It's very simple. I have my cards and some cash inside. So this is the Traveler's Notebook 20th Anniversary Edition in card-sized brown leather. And it has this cloth zipper pouch with some pockets here and a zippered compartment. I also have this craft folder. And what drew me to it is how small it truly is. For reference, this is a card. It's like that. It's just a bit bigger, but basically this is the smallest in their collection. And it's like this big, this tiny, I mean. So I realized that if the kit is something that's even slightly annoying or big to carry, I know myself well enough to know that I'm not bringing it with me. So this is perfect actually. And then in the middle, I keep one notebook insert for product ideas, notes from what I read, random thoughts, the metro schedule, whatever. And I also use these little Hobonichi Tsuki no Iro sticky notes just to extend the space a bit, because right now I'm trying not to burn through inserts too quickly, which are currently not being sold separately. So I'm using these, and it's just a perfect size. As you can see, it's around the same length as the card sized, and they look like this when you buy them off of Hobonichi, just for you to have an idea. And then paired with that notebook, I've been using this cute Kaweiko Lilliput fountain pen, which I absolutely adore. One thing I didn't expect is that because you have to screw the cap off every time, so you get that tiny moment before writing that interrupts the impulse just a little bit and forces me to slow down. And I like the patina on this because it's a brass material. And then it also fits in this tag. I did not invent this mechanism. I've seen this a lot. Patrick Nang, I think, was one of those. I'm going to link up their profiles in the description box below. And then on the back, I have this tiny X3 e-reader from XT Ink. I've also made a video on the X4. I'm going to leave a link here if you're interested in that. And also I'll link all these items in the description box below if you want to have a look. This ended up being probably the most important part of the whole experiment because it replaced the thing I'd usually do on my phone, which is just to consume content. So I have my books here. I try to just load 1 or 2 books so that I also don't get distracted. So before I would listen to podcasts, scroll Reddit, Substack, quickly look something up on Google. So reading on this felt slower in a good way. And I'm forced to concentrate and focus on the story or the plot. And I think a nice fiction book is especially good for this anti-scroll kit. And it also still kind of feels like carrying a little leather book around when I open it up like this to read, which I really like, and no one really knows I'm reading a book. So yeah, I like that part. And then the last thing is just some colored pencils, which are also card-sized, which I put in this compartment. I've always wanted to draw more actually, but I think I kept accidentally choosing hobbies with too much setup. Like every time I tried watercolor, it's either I need extra tools or water, or that I have zero technique and it becomes frustrating that I'd stop. So I saw the work of the artist Michael McGregor, and it just inspired me to get into this medium. I think it's just more accessible, and you just open the notebook and start drawing. So yeah, I'm going to show you some bits of my elementary drawing, but there's something really nice about just pausing and looking at normal everyday things you would usually take for granted. And I think it forces your attention outward in a way phones really don't. And it's just a way to add some color as well to my pages and just be playful in my days and just be doing something offline. Okay, so let me just put back these pencils in here. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, feel free to hit the subscribe button. It really helps more people discover the channel, and so you don't miss any of my future videos as well. Now back to my anti-scroll kit. So let's go to the experiment itself. The rules were very simple. For 5 days, Monday to Friday, whenever I'd normally grab my phone during my commute or while waiting around somewhere, I had to use the kit instead. So most weekdays, I commute around 9:30 in the morning and come home around 4, so that became the main testing ground. I'd leave the kit by our console so I wouldn't forget it, grab it on the way out, and then as soon as I got to the metro platform, I'd pull it out. Usually, I'd read on the train in the mornings, and at first, my brain and body revolted against this arrangement. So there were multiple moments where I'd automatically start reaching into my bag before I'd even consciously decided to use my phone, which was really concerning, to be honest, because it made me realize how much of this stuff is just muscle memory at this point. Now, the afternoon commute was harder. The metro is more crowded. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes the movement makes me dizzy. And that was usually when I'd cave and start listening to something or checking my phone. But honestly, even reducing the amount felt noticeable. On days I wasn't commuting, I'd take the kit to a cafe instead, and those were probably my favorite parts of the experiment. I'd read a little, write down ideas, sometimes sketch something, sometimes literally just sit there drinking coffee, just with my ideas, letting them percolate, and that felt very refreshing. Let's talk about the results. So in terms of actual numbers, it was just moderately successful. I read 4 out of 5 days. I wrote things down on my notepad 3 out of 5 days. I sketched or drew at cafes 2 out of 5 days. But honestly, I think the interesting part was less what I did and more how different my brain felt after a few days. I felt calmer, and I don't think I realized how overstimulated I'd been making myself all the time until I actually forced myself to reduce my online content consumption. There was also something really satisfying about interrupting the automatic behavior. Like, the phone was still there. I could have used it whenever I wanted, but choosing not to made me feel in control and prouder that I get to have a say about the matter. And my personal experiment is actually lining up with research that Cal Newport mentioned in his podcast recently. There's this recent study, I'll link it below, where researchers blocked mobile internet on participants' phones for a while, and most of them showed improvements in sustained attention, well-being, and mental health. This honestly makes complete sense. The point wasn't really don't use technology, so they still had access to their internet while on the desktop, but it's just not letting it follow them everywhere. It also turns out that their time was replaced by other activities like reading a book, socializing, or being out in nature. And as a creative and researcher myself, protecting my cognitive capacity in this way is not just about feeling healthier or calmer, but also doing better work. So, what did I learn from bringing this EDC everyday carry kit with me in the 5-day experiment? The biggest takeaway is the visceral realization of how hijacked my brain has become of constant stimulation, and that having an alternative that can be as portable as your phone and that makes a decision to go offline an easier and equally delightful choice made a lot of difference. And as that Chase Jarvis book saying goes about the best camera is the one that's with you, I think the best antidote to scrolling isn't a complicated system. Sometimes it's just having a substitute that's small enough and good enough to always be in your pocket. And that, I think, I definitely achieved with this simple anti-scroll kit. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter, link in the description box below, where I send an email about once a month or a fortnight around how I'm using my analog and e-ink tools, as well as how to be productive in a cozy and self-compassionate way. That's all for now. See you in the next one, and until then, stay paperful.